Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan. And in this video, we're going to be talking about some underrated quarterbacks that we think you guys can try and target in fantasy, some sleepers for you. This is the first fantasy video we've done, definitely this year, maybe ever, honestly. I'm not sure.
Ever.
I think ever so this is a new thing for us. We don't want to give away too much because, we don't want to,
I'll explain
expose
later.
our intel. Jordan will get into that. But yeah, we're
So
going to talk
video
about some
first.
fantasy quarterbacks.
All right, so first we're going to name off all of our quarterbacks. Each of us are going to name off two. Then we're going to have open discussion about each one of them. So the two that I chose are Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals, previously with national championship winning team LSU.
My two are Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield.
And lastly, my two, Ryan Tannehill and Drew Lock. All of these very interesting quarterbacks. If you want to hear us talking about just one specific one, you can probably scroll through the video. We're going to go through Jordan's two first, then Ryan's two, and then my two. Just open discussion. So scroll through if you just want to see some of that. We can respect that. Let's start with Jordan. You're up.
All right, so first I'm going to start with Ben Roethlisberger. Since I'm sorry I can't say his name. I say it weird just like I can't say other words sometimes.
Yeah.
Just how I
Roethlisberger.
speak. So sorry about that. I'll try not to say his name again throughout the video. But anyways, this quarterback last year, if you did not know, he only started in 2 games. He had the injury, only 351 yards in the season, and 0 touchdowns, the interesting stat from last year. So we're going to go to 2018. Now this year he had Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster on his team. He set some records, some good, some bad. So first of all, he had 675 attempts, 5,129 yards in the air, which is very, very good. But the problem with that is also he threw 16 interceptions, which ties the second worst that he's had in his career. His worst was in 2006 when he had 23, which is a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, and I mean, the injury last year was clearly a huge hit to his team and probably a hit to his fantasy stock this year going into your drafts. But what I want to say to you guys about Ben Roethlisberger is don't be afraid. I mean, it's a quarterback. There are so many different quarterbacks out there, especially this year. This is one of the most quarterback-friendly years in a fantasy draft. Don't be afraid to take a chance on Ben if he's there. We've seen the skill before, and just because there's an injury does not mean he can recover. Now he's got Chase Claypool to throw to, Juju Smith-Schuster, a couple good tight ends in there. They got Eric Ebron also.
Yeah, that was a nice pick.
So, I mean, this wide receiver core is getting more and more stacked. So watch out for what Ben can do. If he can stay healthy, you might find yourself a great sleeper that people wouldn't expect you to pick early, but take a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
And tell you made a good point that it's kind of hard to trust him. It's not just him; it's hard to trust the whole Steelers after the season they had last year. Going into the 2019 draft, Juju Smith-Schuster was probably high on a lot of people's draft boards because of what he did the year before with Antonio Brown there, with Ben Roethlisberger healthy. I said his name again. So it's hard to trust them. Even James Conner, it's harder to trust this year because the Steelers just had such a decline last year. Although they did end up with a decent record. Mike Tomlin did some good stuff with them. But it's just kind of hard to trust them. I'd say Big Ben's been in the league for a long time. Yes, he's declining. Yes, there's a risk of an injury. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. But if you're in a 2-quarterback league, I'd say definitely go out and grab one. Even if you're not, and you just want to get a nice backup guy on your bench just to relieve someone, maybe if your quarterback's not good, or just for a safety, you want to draft someone. I think Ben and really all of these guys in this list, with the exception of one I'll talk about when we get there, just because I think he actually should be farther up than this in top tier, then you can definitely go out and get yourself Ben Roethlisberger.
All right, Ryan, you got anything to say about Ben?
About Ben, I think it's just going to be an interesting player to watch, in fantasy and just in general, really. We've seen how good he could be, but then again, the Pittsburgh team looks a little different than the teams he's had in years past, but, and it's even more of a question mark because we didn't have a preseason. We don't have as much access to training camp, so it's just hard to gauge, how well is he really doing. Obviously, haven't heard any bad news, which is good news, and it seems like he'll be ready to go.
I think he's fine. He's had a long time to.
Yeah, I know he has. Some players, struggle coming back from injuries, and some players come back better than ever.
He's had a lot of injuries in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even when he's still playing, there's a lot of times when he's playing injured. He's a tough guy. You got to give him credit for that.
And he's got a decent O-line. So.
Oh, yeah. And then one last note, not about Ben, but really quickly, watch out for Chase Claypool, who's on that team.
I don't know how much starting time he'll get to start the season, but
He'll
I think
play.
as the season
I think
goes
he will
on, there's
play.
guys
I
like
think he will
Deontay
play.
Johnson.
I
there
think
who
by
might
the end of
keep
the
him
year,
out.
he will be the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh. Bold prediction.
Wow.
Above Juju.
I
yes.
I will
agree with
say
that, but-
number 2.
I just think he's gonna have a DK Metcalf like impact. We're not talking about him. Jordan, let's talk about your next quarterback.
Yeah, the next quarterback that I have is Joe Burrow. Now, obviously, Joe Burrow, the rookie, like I said, out of national championship winning team LSU. So we're going to read off some of the stats from LSU, since obviously we don't have any NFL stats yet with the Cincinnati Bengals. So number 1 overall pick. Just wanted to mention that. So, anyways, let's read off the stats. Last year at LSU, an outstanding, and I cannot emphasize it enough, outstanding year from Joe Burrow with the LSU Tigers. Broke
Go Ducks!
so many records.
That's right.
It was insane. 5,671 passing yards. That's a lot. But wait, let's go to touchdowns. 60 touchdowns in
It's
15
also college football.
games played.
but I mean, that's
Yes,
still
it's college
outstanding.
football. That is absolutely
Yes.
outstanding.
Yeah.
You can make the argument he had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase around him, but he did so much. That's a lot of touchdowns. That's a lot of yards, and compared to only 6 interceptions. Now, I think that number might go up in the NFL because there's harder competition sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's playing at the SEC, so he's getting some good competition.
Yeah, the SEC is the place to be.
But pretty smart quarterback. So really, really good stuff that we saw from Joe Burrow out of college. That's obviously why he was drafted at number 1. If anyone did a mock draft, all 3 of us did.
Yeah.
It was basically a unanimous pick that Joe Burrow was going to go 1, except for someone that Ryan Meta just coughed.
Yeah, you talk about Joe Burrow being smart. What I do love about Joe Burrow, that he's smart, but he's not afraid to take chances.
Yes.
That might lose you 2 points in fantasy every once in a while, but it can get you a lot more points in yardage.
Especially
and
on
he'll take
those deep
chances on
throws,
touchdowns.
he'll take those
Yeah.
chances.
And also another thing that people say when you're talking about rookie quarterbacks and quarterbacks playing for a bad team, you can't say, well, he's never done it in the NFL, I don't want to take a chance, or he's playing for a bad team, because when you're in fantasy, all you are caring about is Jordan's favorite thing in the world, stats.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good your team is. If your quarterback is throwing touchdowns and getting you points,
You got DJ
That's what
Chark
matters.
on your fantasy team, and he's doing stuff, but the Jaguars are sucking, which I assume that they will. That's just how I feel about the Jaguars. Sorry, Jaguars fan. It doesn't matter to you because he's getting points.
yeah, I mean, for example, with Kyler Murray, their team wasn't that good last year, but he was putting up a lot of points, and he's not on here. He's too good. He's not even a sleeper, and he's getting those points. That's just an example.
Yeah, and when you look at Burrow, I think that there's 2 things you have to look at. One, I think the Bengals receiving group is solid. You know, AJ Green's coming back, Tyler Boyd, underrated guys like
That's what I was
Auden
gonna
Tate.
Like Auden
Yeah.
Tate, I think he'll do some good stuff.
Yeah, you know, his teammates have been raving about him in training camp, but I mean, what are they
Even
gonna
last
say?
year,
Yeah.
he did some good stuff too.
Yeah.
Early in the season, for sure.
Yeah, so the teammates, giving Burrow good reviews, but the one concern is
You guys didn't mention T. Higgins.
I was
did
talking about Auden
T.
Tate, but yeah. T. Higgins,
Yeah.
we didn't mention him either.
Yeah.
That's a really good one as well.
and
I
then
love T.
and then with Burrow,
Sorry,
I
Mike.
knew it was coming. You look at Burrow's kind of circumstances. The receivers are good, but I am a little concerned about how the Bengals' offensive line is not the greatest, because you look at a lot of Burrow's plays at LSU.
They've been trying.
A lot of, they have been trying, and it'll be better, but it's still a work in progress. And a lot of Burrow's big
Got
plays
Jonah
at
They got,
LSU,
they got Jonah.
they do, and
They
they
have 2 first-round picks this year.
basically. And I'm not saying it's horrible. I'm saying it's not, great by any
Yeah.
means. And like I'm trying to say, look at Burrow's, a lot of his big plays at LSU. A lot of them were long-lasting plays where he scrambled, and guys like ran post and corner routes, and it was just great. But I agree with the Burrow pick. I think he will be better with time, and I think he's NFL ready.
Some people have trouble drafting rookies, but Joe Burrow was so good in college. This is a really fun one to do.
I love
I'm not going to tell you to go out and draft Tua.
I do
or
like
Herbert.
it, yeah.
They might not even start, so definitely I wouldn't condone drafting them unless something definitively has changed by the time your draft is. But Joe Burrow, I think he's a safer rookie than we've had in a long time. I think he'd do some good stuff. I hope they do, because I want the Bengals to be good. I want Joe Burrow to do good. I want T to do good. I want AJ to do good. I want Tyler to do good. Not this Tyler. I want to beat him. And I want
I'll do good.
the whole team to do good.
All right, let's get
Fine.
to Ryan's 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I've got some interesting ones, and I want to get this guy out of the way because I talk about him a lot, and that's Josh Allen. So, yep.
Yeah, let's get this one
Yeah,
out
let's
of
get this over with.
You could go watch about half of our
You
videos
want
on
the
our
stats?
channel on Josh Allen.
Yeah, just let me say something real quick, and then you can tell me the stats. But
Yep.
I really expect a big leap from Josh Allen. I think he's flash potential. The arm strength is there, the mobility is there, the strength is there physically, but the accuracy's just got to improve.
Especially
I
on
think
the
it will.
deep ball.
Yes.
Yeah, he has such a good arm. I just don't understand why he can hit the deep ball.
It'll get better. I do think it'll get better, and I think he's got a solid coach in Sean McDermott. I think McDermott, he just got an extension, well deserved. So I think Allen is really in a great circumstance in Buffalo to succeed. I'm going to let you guys take the rest because I can go on about him.
Yeah, I'm just going to read off the stats here. So last year, 2019, 3,089 yards for Mr. Allen. He got inside thing that I just said. Tyler got it. 20 touchdowns last year for Josh Allen compared to only 9 interceptions. It's still more than you would like, but that's 3 more than he got the previous year where he only started in 11 games. This year he played all 16 games. Got a little bit over 1,000 more yards than he did his rookie year. He got 10 more touchdowns than he did his rookie year. And now he's got more weapons. Stephon Diggs there. Smokey John Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. I think he can do some good things. I think he's underrated. But these guys already know that. I've talked about him a lot too. And Devin Singletary, Moss in that backfield as well. I think there's a lot of weapons on that team. I'm going to a Bills deep dive now. But really, the whole team, it's going to really help Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow? Josh Allen. It started with the J. Josh Allen with the Bills. We're going to go back to that again. And then, I had one more thing to say. According to FantasyData.com, last year, Josh Allen was a QB7, which is what is, if you remember from early in the video, there was one guy on this list where I feel like he's not even a sleeper because he should be getting drafted this high. I think it's Josh Allen. He's got the weapons around him. QB7 last year, like I said. So he also has that running ability, which is going to give you a lot of points as well. So I don't think he's as much as a sleeper. I think he's a definite pick, and I think Ryan's going to reach for him in our draft.
Yeah, I agree. But I do like I'm looking.
If you don't have,
I'm forward looking to no. I'm looking forward to seeing.
Someone else who's yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of big connections between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Because I think it's going to happen with the deep threat of Stephon Diggs. A lot of fantasy points in that regard. Ryan, let's move on to your next one. I'm forward looking to it.
Yeah. Well,
that was on purpose, by the way.
I think it was a joke,
but they might not know.
And this guy is probably not as popular of a pick to be a sleeper, but I've got Baker Mayfield, and I think that
you might be the only one talking about this because I'm not sure how much I agree.
I know.
I'll read the stats off.
Well, yeah, I'll talk a little bit first, then you can read the stats, and then we can be done if you got nothing to add. I really think he's going to have a junior jump. I think that, he's got that winning mentality. He's got that experience. He's got the playmaking ability. That's why the Browns drafted him at 1 back in 2018. And, his rookie year, he, had some highs. He seemed like he was finally going to be the guy in Cleveland. Sophomore year, he was humbled a little bit. He had some setbacks, and sometimes that's what you need. So I think he's going to come back better than ever. I think he learned a lot that year. I think finally the Browns have the right coach, hopefully with Stefanski, and he's got good receivers, Odell, Jarvis, solid offense around him. The offensive line is better. I expect a big improvement from Baker in fantasy football and just in general. So I think he's a guy to watch out for.
And you mentioned how he had some miscues last year, things that he could learn from. Specifically, that is referring to his 21 interceptions that he had last year. That's a lot of interceptions. Going to passing yards, he had 3,827 and 22 touchdowns, which is the yards are only 100 more than he had in 2018, where he started 13 games. He came in during that Jets game on Thursday Night Football, which was really fun to watch. That was a cool moment for sure. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, and I was going to say touchdowns. He had 5 less touchdowns than he did his rookie year, and that's hard to believe with the offense he had around him. Ryan mentioned OBJ, Jarvis, even Nick Chubb can be thrown in there. Kareem Hunt's going to be playing this year. Those guys were there last year, so it just really was weird to see that last year. I hope Baker will do better. Ryan's high on him.
Yep.
I can't say I'm that high on him, but again, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for all these guys. I'm hopeful for Ben. I'm hopeful for Joe. I'm hopeful for Baker. Hopeful for Josh. And probably hopeful for some of the guys that Tyler's going to be talking about. So let's move over to that.
Yeah, one more thing before we move on to mine. I do want to mention with Baker Mayfield, I will say, from my perspective, it might be a little risky to draft Baker Mayfield, not because of the talent, but because now they have Kevin Stefanski as their coach. We saw a lot of running in Minnesota. and I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to translate to the Browns or not. If they're going to bring that to Cleveland,
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I
how
don't
much we're
think
going to
it's
see
gonna
Nick
be
Chubb be used, and maybe that hurts
as much.
Baker Mayfield in terms of fantasy. So
I think maybe
just
a
want to
little
point
bit. I
that
do
out.
think they'll run the ball a lot there, but I think I think he's due. I think Baker Mayfield's going to show us why he was drafted 1 overall in 2018.
All right, well, it's my turn to go through. My first one that I'm going to talk about is Ryan Tannehill.
Baker Mayfield, quarterback 19 last year. Sorry, Ryan Tannehill, go.
Ryan Tannehill. I'm talking about him solely because I had him on my team last year for fantasy. I picked him up in the middle of the season, and it was a huge help for me. The yardage was there. He's throwing a lot of touchdowns. He had 22 last year, but I mean that was just more towards the end. He only played 12 games because Marcus Mariota was in, so these stats don't sound incredible. 2,742 yards and only 6 interceptions in the 12 games that he played. So there was
Started 10 games.
he was constantly putting up. Yeah. Oh wait, whatever.
You played 12 games, started 10. It's just you gotta.
Yeah,
you gotta
you're
roll
right.
that.
Yeah. But the yardage and the touchdowns were there. That's what you have to look at. And I'm not sure how this Titans team is going to produce, but I do like Ryan Tannehill going into the 2020 draft for fantasy.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to say about that. I'm going to keep it brief. You guys have anything?
Well, I just want to pose the same question you kind of posed to me. Like, are you concerned at all because the Titans have Derrick Henry and this solid offensive line that they made more additions to, like, even with their first-round pick, Isaiah Wilson? Are you concerned that they're going to be a smash-mouth team again and that Tannehill is just going to be a game manager?
It's definitely something you have to look at. But you've watched it over the last 3 seasons. It's been a lot of early, lots of passing. You get to that winter, colder, and then you start to see Derrick Henry really hit his stride. I still think he's going to be one of the better running backs this year, but we're really going to see Derrick Henry pounding the ball later on. And if you're probably playing in a fantasy league with one quarterback, you have that other quarterback that you can play. If Ryan Tannehill is not doing much, but for the first 8 weeks or so, I would say Ryan Tannehill is going to be a stud for fantasy.
Right. Yeah, and you know, so there's a stud, A.J. Brown. He's got to get his targets eventually. Ryan Tannehill seems like the guy who's going to be throwing to him, unless they got some other backup guy that's going to stand out this year. I actually don't know who the backup is anymore since Mariota is with the Raiders now.
Is it Cole McDonald or do they have someone else there?
I have no clue.
I don't know. But anyways, so he's definitely got to get his targets. Hopefully Corey Davis can improve because he's been a bust so far.
He's up and down. He's
really,
inconsistent.
Yeah. So that is my thoughts on Ryan Tannehill. I'm right in the middle on him. I don't know how to feel about him.
It's definitely not one to reach on, but if he's there, you take him.
I say he's probably around 15 in my quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, I would say he's a high risk, high reward type of
All
guy.
depends if we're going to see the same Titans we saw
I don't
last
think
year.
his reward is like crazy high, but I think
his ceiling. He was one of the better fantasy quarterbacks in those middle portions of the year last year.
A big portion of that was also some like QB sneak touchdowns.
Okay, well, those
we'll
are fantasy
take that.
points.
Yeah, that's 6
fantasy
should
points
be
are
giving
fantasy
it
points.
Derrick Henry probably anyways at the goal line, but still.
Well, maybe they'll keep doing that.
Well, maybe
sometimes
you can be their offensive coordinator.
You know, last year I think he felt more free to kind of be more risky, and like you saw it with him diving into the end zone many times. Like his body got smacked on a couple of those times that he's diving in. I feel like he was going to be a bit more conservative of a quarterback this year. So who knows? That might help him or might hurt him. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on to my last one. We mentioned it earlier. Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos.
I like this one.
I will say he played 5 games last year, so the stats not incredible. 1,020 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Obviously, look at those stats. It's not something great, but for the 5 games he played, that's pretty darn good. Not a huge sample size from Drew Lock, which can be concerning. I'm sure people are going to be concerned, but don't let that guide you away from the fact that there is so much potential here.
Ryan
once again,
personally knows about Drew Lock, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. But once again, he's the guy that you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go and get him up here. But if he's falling down there, and you're like, oh, maybe Drew Lock, take him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hesitate to take him, because even if Drew Lock's skill is not at his peak, they drafted 2 amazing wide receivers this year, in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. I had them both in my top 5 rookie wide receivers. Not to mention they already have Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton there.
Yeah.
And Noah Fant at the tight end position. They are stacked on the offensive side of the ball. A good running game to help him.
And Philip Lindsay.
I see, yeah.
They also got that undrafted rookie, right? Levante Bell.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But, I mean, even if he's not at his peak potential, I see the stats and the touchdowns being so much, because the wide receivers will be able to do things for him. They're going to make it as easy as possible for Drew Lock. But regardless of that, I do think Drew Lock is going to have a huge boost in his second year in the NFL, and I'm excited for it.
And similar to the point that I mentioned with Ryan Tannehill, these receivers are going to get their targets. Yes, Melvin Gordon's going to get his carries too. Philip Lindsay will probably get some of his as well. It'll be interesting to see how they split that backfield. I'm actually just waiting to see how that will work out. It should be fun to see what they decide to do. But these guys got to get their carries. Nope. They got to get their targets.
There you go.
Cortland Sutton, I think, is going to have a great year. He's got to get his targets. I love Jared Judy. I had him at 1 on my wide receivers boards. He got to get his target. KJ Hamler, I wasn't as high on it as Tyler it was, but I think he's still going to do some good stuff. I think he's great on deep routes. He tracks the ball beautifully. He's a little bit small, but, you can be small and still be a good wide receiver.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Hamilton as well. Sorry, I'm not talking very well. Deshaun Hamilton as well.
That was a tough one even for me to say.
Yeah.
I think he'll do some decent things probably. He'll be in more.
You seem very confident about that.
He'll probably be more a starter than once maybe Judy and Hamler grow. Maybe he might move out of the ring a bit more. So it'll be interesting to see that team. No offense.
Yeah, and really quick, I just got to add about Drew Lock. I've been, kind of on the Drew Lock train for a while because back in the 2019 draft, I had him second in my quarterback rankings for that draft, and that was higher than most. So I was excited about him really since before the draft, and I was shocked that he fell to the second round. And, I'm still kind of on this hype train. I think that he's going to break out. I know there's the small sample size, but I like the traits that he has. I think he'll get better with time, and that offense is stacked. Like, so many promising young receivers. So, really, really like that you picked Drew Lock. I think that's awesome.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, well, that's going to conclude the video, I'm pretty sure. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to like this video. If we gave you some good advice, comment down below if you like our advice or if you disagree or ask us questions about fantasy. We'll be more than happy to answer them.
Sorry, I went a little long, but we just have too much fun talking about fantasy football, especially me.
I told him before you can just.
I didn't mention it in the video. I always gotta mention it whenever I can. I did beat these guys last year. Fantasy, so I do know what I'm talking about. Don't want to brag. Obviously, don't want to boast, but I had to just mention it. I think I know what I'm talking about, and these guys, of course, know what they're talking about as well. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for that credibility. Oh yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, as I said, comment, like this video, hit the notification bell. With that, we will see you guys later.
See ya.